Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, April 22nd board meeting.
Andrew, aye.
Capiello, aye.
Kosha here. All right, let's stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Agenda review and approval.
I have no issues, so I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Andrew, aye.
Capiello, aye.
Scotia. Okay, I'm now going to open up public comment for those that are here for the Ayers Lake boat launch. I'm going to be holding another separate public comment for that only. But if we have any other public comments. No. There's you can come up and talk about it, but I'm going to hold a separate public comment just for that portion for Ayers Lake only. So if there's for tonight. Yeah.
When we get to that.
When we get down to it, you guys can come say your piece. You see anybody online?
Nobody online.
Okay. Nobody else. I'm going to close public comment. And next
Sorry,
up,
Mr. Town, were you trying to speak at public comment?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You're just gonna have to make sure the light's green there.
It is now. Good evening. My name is Matt Town. I live in Ayers Lake. Obviously, the subject of discussion tonight. There'll be more extensive comments being made by Jim Higginbottom. So I'm representing myself as a citizen on Ayers Lake. And I would speak forcefully to the notion of the boat ramp itself, which right now on the plans that we were given is 12 feet wide. I would strongly encourage the select board to reduce that to 4 feet, maximum 6 feet. This is an opportunity, quite frankly, to save Ayers Lake. You know, we live almost in daily fear, maybe not in January when the ice is frozen, but we live in constant fear that that lake will become very much like Swains Lake, which will, and you probably know, $60,000 last year and probably $60,000 in perpetuity to control the milfoil on that lake. Ayers Lake will be many orders of magnitude worse. We are only an average depth of 14 feet. And so the milfoil, when it takes hold, will happen across the lake very rapidly. And for all intents and purposes, it will become unusable for most fishermen since the milfoil takes all the oxygen out of the water, where you have dozens of fishermen fishing from kayaks and rooftop boats now, they will disappear. It will become unswimmable for most people. And we have, by my count today, about 35 children around the lake, including grandchildren, that use that lake, virtually all summer. That will go away. And so this is a decision that has consequences well into the future. So I really encourage the select board to revisit that piece. The other things we can work around, the dock and the access and the lake, but we want people to use the lake. We don't want them to destroy the lake. And that is our concern. It won't be intentional. It will be by the casual boater that comes in that is not familiar with the milfoil issue here in New Hampshire, and that'll happen then. There's no washing facilities. In other lakes, where we're talking in particular, they have washing stations. There's no facilities, nor will there ever be facilities to wash boats and the bilge and the props and the rudders and all the rest that go with that. It's not that issue with kayaks and with rooftop boats generally. There's less projectiles to capture that milfoil. But in this situation, if we start launching, motorboats on that, the 18-foot bar riders and larger down that ramp, the opportunity to introduce milfoil there is just legion. It's just enormous. We do have and have had since the early teens, we've had a weed watcher committee. And we go out religiously, and I have a section like this assigned to me, and so I have a catalog where I
Excuse
compare
me,
what I see.
Matt, I'm gonna have
Yes,
to
sir.
stop you there. That's 3 minutes.
Okay. Final comment, please consider your vote here.
Anybody else for public comment? I'm gonna be holding a separate public comment for Ayers Lake later when that comes up. Okay. We're gonna do public comment on it, like when that comes up in the meeting. We're just trying to get through some stuff right now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment and on to public hearing and invited guests. School board liaison report.
Thank you for giving us a chance to speak tonight. I'm not going to steal Dan's thunder for the end of the meeting, so I'm just going to, there's a couple of quick things that I wanted to talk about. On May the 9th, I think it's the 9th. Yeah, May 9th at 6:30 at the middle school, we're going to have a meeting with the 3 high schools that Barrington sends kids to. They'll be invited in to speak for about 20 minutes each. And that'll be the opportunity for parents and interested residents to ask them questions. So I'd encourage you to mark your calendars and come over to the middle school. And I'm going to see if we can I'll get a little more information from Deanna and see if we can get it on to the town's websites to reach more people. We'd like to fill the room. And the other thing I had was, speaking as an independent member of the school board, looking at the 5th District Advisory Board, I would encourage you folks to, or I would ask that you strongly consider that the school board, a member of the school board, be involved in some part of the process. We're going to talk about the issue at our next meeting. It kind of slipped my mind, or I would ask to put it on the agenda the last time. But I think it's important for a number of reasons. In particular, the land abuts the school land, and there might be opportunities in which we can do things together to perhaps would benefit the kids during the day, during the week, during the school year and stuff. So again, I apologize. It kind of slipped my mind, but I would just ask before you make a final decision on what the advisory board would look like is that you give us the opportunity at least to participate in some fashion.
Excellent.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I think the last day of school is like the 17th.
Woo!
18th.
18th.
He's not chief here. He's a school board member,
I'm a
the
school
honorable
board
school board
member,
member
yeah.
Walker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, public hearing. We're gonna move on to the acquisition of the town center lot, map 239, lot 7 per RSA 4114A for map town center. So I'd like to open public comment for the acquisition of the town center lot. Public comment in-house, online.
I don't see anything online, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment for the town center lot.
Remember, we have that vote 1 week
Yes,
from
sir.
tonight.
I'm gonna say.
Okay, on to the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
I second it.
Roll call.
Aye.
Capiello, aye.
Sakosha. Okay, appointments, no vote needed, just if you have any discussion on the Recreation Commission, Matt Moores, and then Conservation Commission, alternate Steve Hobbs. Does the board have any discussion on those?
Steve Hobbs isn't on the agenda, but I think we might have seen his,
It's true.
there's Matt. Yeah, and Steve Hobbs, but he's not listed as for appointments.
Oh, okay. I apologize about that.
We do too.
So can we just add him for discussion? How come yours says that?
Well, I get a special one.
Ah, yes.
Apparently,
Do you have it on yours?
I don't have it on mine.
Okay.
apparently a special one. Steve Hobbs was recommended by former chair of the Conservation Commission, Ken Grossman. And had talked to him and encouraged him to participate to fill an alternate. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So you have the
so we have his application.
Okay. I apologize that it's not on your agenda.
Okay, with, so no further discussion on those, right?
I have none.
Okay,
We're good.
moving on to staff reports, Connor?
Super, thank you. We're at the second meeting in April, so I won't read through the work anniversaries, but certainly appreciate the continued tenure of those employees. I wanted to talk briefly about a follow-up from our strategic planning and goal setting from our last meeting. We bundled the 2 minutes together. I'm sure you saw. I sent out the minutes from the strategic planning later that night, and then we attached them to the regular meeting minutes, just so they're all together. You can look for them in one place. But when I sent out the notes that night and I was compiling the goals, I noticed that we didn't really identify some of the bigger goals that we had as either 3 or 5 year goals. And I'd set some of them as 3-year goals. And I appreciate Member Cappiello for kind of digging into that and seeing that, you know, some of these things are really those 5-year marks of things we should be working on continuously and guiding us towards the mission, vision, and values. And so I included from Member Cappiello the continued implementation of the capital improvements program, continued work on a multifaceted approach to preserve Barrington's rural character through conservation, updates to land use rules, expanding the commercial tax base, implementing the vision of the town center as designed by residents, the advisory board and the select board, and continue to explore opportunities to invest in childcare opportunities for the community, and finally continue to explore elderly housing opportunities. And so without objection, I'd like to have those items be listed as the 5-year goals, along with the kind of 1-year goals, 3-year goals, and now this set of 5-year goals from our strategic planning session.
Deanna?
Any discussion about that? Is there anything else you could think to add?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, as presented.
Yeah, and so we'll revisit this obviously as we did last year, but I think having that document and revisiting it as we approach those items, either in the 1-year, 3-year, 5-year goal category. And the only other thing that I'll ask is there any, you know, I know we're going to take a separate meeting on the master plan and kind of focus on that, which I think is a great idea. But is there any other way that you as a group want to track the progress on either following the strategic planning session or on those goals different than we did last year? A couple times throughout the year last year, I presented basically updated documents which kept all of the same content but added categories for basically things we've done since the last update. Did you like that fit and finish, or do you want to see updates in a different format? Or you can tell me later.
Yeah, I'll take some time to think on it.
Yeah. Feels like we probably need a little more than a report. We probably need to have a discussion.
Goals to see what,
So yeah, think
That-
about that.
What you would present as a,
Mm-hmm.
I think wrestling with it.
Yeah, I think for me, the important thing is that we continue to talk about them, which I think we did a really good job at last year. And so you'll just have to let me know if there are tools that I can provide to help facilitate that continued conversation. So make sure nothing falls off the table.
excellent.
Cool. Tax increment financing district advisory board. So we heard from our school board liaison that there's interest in having some collaboration with the school board, which I think is terrific. A school board member, Garth Svensson, has submitted an application for appointment. So that will be one that the board can consider.
Oh, cool.
We have, I think to this point now, we have 4 or 5 applications for the 4 positions to be filled. We have somebody who's an architect that's interested. I don't think he has submitted an application yet. We have folks that have been involved in town, folks that haven't been involved in town. I got an application today from, he's actually the town administrator in Epping, but lives on Malago and is very interested in the district. So we have a good cross-section of folks interested in participating. So this is that call. We have applications due day after tomorrow. We'll review those for discussion at our meeting on the 29th, a week from tonight, and then we'll vote on those on May 13th.
So I was hoping we would have a landscape architect who might wanted to serve. So if there's anyone out there who's a landscape architect,
Or if you know anybody.
use your expertise.
Definitely. Training opportunities, another plug for the local officials workshop. They actually postponed the April version. That's on May 1st, and then they're doing it again on May 7th. The Hard Road to Travel workshop's May 9th. Municipal Association Annual Conference is October 30th and 31st. And Municipal Office Administrator Caudle is excused for tonight, as today she's celebrating her 40th birthday.
Hey, Tiffany, happy birthday.
As much as I tried to encourage her, cake and candles and all the rest of the select board, she's with her family. Anyways, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, on to old business. I would now like to open up public comment for Ayers Lake boat launch, conversation only. Come on up, please state your name and your address and present.
My name's Robert Lyons. I live at 154.
If you could just, Rob, sorry, if you could just turn on the microphone. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
My name is Robert Lyons. I live at 154 Pond Hill Road. I'm the executive director of Camp Fireside. So regarding this clearing next to the Camp Fireside property, I do appreciate the work that has gone into addressing the corrosion and usage issues regarding the clearing. However, the Camp Fireside Board of Trustees has several questions and concerns. Camp Fireside has always supported public access to the lake through a longstanding beach pass program. Through the years, thousands of Barrington residents have obtained access to Ayers Lake and the Camp Fireside Beach at a reasonable and reduced rate. We continue that ideal with our support of a small launch and would accommodate carried watercraft such as canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, and similar vessels. Specifically, we would like to see a launch roughly 4 feet in size with natural barriers to self-limit the potential to the introduction of exotic plant species that would potentially be devastating to the Ayers Lake ecosystem and enjoyment of the lake. An additional concern is the safety of campers, as well as the operations of our organization. Specifically, the following areas: large trailers blocking the roadway while launching and loading. Our campers have been prevented from walking to the beach by this activity. Having over 100 campers standing in a roadway and not being able to access our property has been detrimental and would be worsened by the proposed draft. Trailers and tow vehicles that block access to gates and force pedestrians to walk in the middle of the roadway on a very narrow road. The Annual Road is not wide enough to accommodate trailers in a safe manner, regardless of the proposed shoulder expansion. Then we also have a question regarding ENV-WT 518.06, specifically the 50 feet from each abutting property line in terms of installing a boat launch. I'm not sure if that has been addressed at all with the waiver, but it does state that in no case shall the setback be less than 25 feet. The proposed area for the launch is within 50 feet, and aspects of it appear to be within 25 feet. So to reiterate our intent, Camp Fireside is supportive of a safe and environmentally aware public usage and access to the lake. However, we believe that the proposed draft will disrupt the operations of our organization and put Ayers Lake in danger of falling to the same destructive fate as so many other lakes in the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing kids to come to the lake. My kids grew up on that lake. They love it.
My name is Diane St. Jean. I live on Small Road on Ayers Lake. I am a member of the Ayers Lake Association. I'm secretary on the board. And I would like to say that our mission as an Ayers Lake Association is the stewardship of the lake. The association has been in existence even longer than we've lived there, and we've been there since the 70s. And but the Ayers Lake Association has been in existence since the 1950s continuously. And since 1987, we have been involved in the state of New Hampshire DES Volunteer Lake Assessment Program, where we sample the lake for various markers of lake health and lake water quality 3 times a summer. And our Lake Association has also initiated a weed watcher program through training from DES also, and that's been in existence since at least 2009. I do want to reiterate that we are open to public access, and we know many people who have brought their kayaks in and enjoy the lake. We are most concerned about the possibility of an infestation of an invasive species, whether it's a plant or animal. And seeing as how Swains Lake has suffered an infestation of milfoil very recently, we know that, there's no reason to think we're immune from that problem. And in fact, having it so nearby makes us a little concerned that people who maybe are avoiding Swains Lake may come to Ayers Lake. And it's very hard to know if you're carrying a bit of invasive plant on your trailer or boat propeller or some other aspect of, your boat's construction. And so, as I think Matt said earlier, we know it would be an accidental infestation. And, we are very vigilant and we would patrol and look for weeds. But once it's started, it's very, very hard to get rid of an infestation of milfoil, for example. So we are doing our best to, take a stance that we want public access, but we're very concerned about the possibility of an infestation that would really damage the lake. So I would like to just say that, we think a 4-foot wide, possibly 4 to 6 foot wide access for car top, canoe, kayak, stand-up paddle boards, those sorts of things would be welcomed. And I don't think that a 12-foot wide ramp is a wise choice in this case, because I think it tends to invite those larger boats and trailers. And I think most of the infestation problems originate in, plants that are attached to trailers. So if something is a carry-in boat, we think it's much less likely to impact the lake.
I'm going to have to stop you there.
Okay,
It's
thank
3
you.
minutes, yeah. Would anybody else like to come up? Public comment on Ayers Lake?
We have 2 people, so is the official response, they're on their way? That people to accommodate that, or?
The select board has a copy of Peter Cruz and Jim Higginbotham, if those are 2 you're talking about. They have a copy of the letter, and that'll be a part of the record. We'll attach those to the minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, discussion.
There's another public.
Yeah, there's just one at the,
So I have a question. I don't know what the definition of these boats are. If these are considered boat trailer tops or what. So if you have a canoe with a flat back and you put a motor on it, or I think some of the fishing kayaks, you might be able to put a motor on.
Yeah.
So those under what the public is suggesting would be
well,
motorized, even though they're motorized.
yeah.
The microphone can't hear. We can't have a.
Typically when, with boats and stuff, they go by horsepower. Like under
So I
5
guess
horse.
I'm not sure if the implication was boats without motors.
That I'm not sure either, because, that's
didn't
like, we can
catch
have
that
some that
right.
and we can't have none,
Yeah, and I think, when the topics come up before, the Lake Association and Camp Fireside have been consistent with their request to not have trailer boats at the access site. Trailer boats have used the access site in accepting the grant and pursuing the process. The select board's policy position at the time was to maintain the level of access, which include trailered access to the water. The site constraints, and was also reiterated by the design, the lake isn't super deep there. And so by and large, the limiting factor for launching a boat there will be the draft of the boat and how high it sits above the trailer. There's about 3 feet, as designed, there's about 3 feet of water from the bottom of the ramp to the top of the water, and that's the average water level. And the lake doesn't get deeper beyond that. And so one of the things that the ramp as designed does is gets to that 3 feet of depth a lot sooner than it does now. Anybody that's backed a trailer into the water knows those shallow boat ramps where you have to get, almost the front tires in the water before the boat's floating. This gets you to your full depth right away. And like I said, the lake doesn't get any deeper. And so there will be a lot of boats that can't be launched here. And that wasn't the design consideration that the select board set in making it more accessible. But that the 3 feet of depth will only float so many boats.
And we got to this point because if you remember, there's issues and safety concerns with the way it is now, and demanding, you guys do something about it. We pursued the grant, we just got the grant acceptance, and now we need to do something about it. But now it's too good. I see a couple gentlemen just entered. Are these the gentlemen that would like to speak on behalf of Ayers Lake? These are the 2 guys you were talking about? Mr. Town? Okay. Come on up to the microphone. State your name, your address.
Just make sure that's still green if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Cruz.
Hello, everyone.
That microphone green?
Yep, looks
Perfect.
green to me. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Pete Cruz. I live at 66 Daniel Cater Road in Barrington. Been a long time resident of Barrington. Lived here since I was 3. I'm the president of the Ayers Lake Association, and joined by our colleagues. I understand a few of you have already spoken already. So I think from our perspective overall, I think we shared kind of a statement with Connor earlier to be read into the record. At the end of the day, we're stewards of the lake. We care about the quality and the health of the lake, and want to make sure that whatever projects the town undertakes in that area around that lake for the erosion issues that we've discussed, the pollution, the potential for invasive species introduction into the lake, that whatever projects that we undertake as a town take those factors into consideration. Submitted some of the questions and the concerns to Connor about the current plan or the current design. And so as we go forward, making sure that one, it's, Connor mentioned that it's being reviewed, was DES participated in some of the plan design, or at least gave feedback. So want to make sure that, we didn't see any plans in the guide for inspection areas with a launch, since it's technically not really a launch, it's more of an access point where the road is washed away, and now that it's being kind of formalized into a place where boats can actually be brought in. But what can we do as a town to protect that area, to inspection facilities, cleaning facilities, not close to that particular launch point where cleaning milfoil off a trailer that can run right back into the lake isn't going to serve a purpose. And then, basically it's consistent with what we've made in our statements before. So I just wanted to reiterate, we've provided statements and documentation and some guidelines from the state that we just want to make sure that as a town, we consider those implications, the side implications of project, to ensure that we have the safety of the lake in mind. Because it would take a very short period of time for that lake to no longer be usable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just discussion tonight, nothing that needs to be voted on.
You just want an overview of the design, kind of, or obviously you've had it, and you have the comments. I don't know if that would be helpful or not.
Yeah, let's talk through
Okay.
the
And I can-
25 and 50 feet from campfire side.
Yeah, and I'll have to ask the engineer about the specific design considerations. One of the things that makes this project unique, both from a permitting standpoint and from the town as an applicant, is the road. The road is the town's property, and that road right away intersects the natural mean high water mark. I'm not a permitting expert, and I don't know all of the details and how that makes some things different, but I'll follow up on that question and certainly get back to the select board about that. And I can pull up, hold on, this one here. Pull up the plans. Obviously, you all have printed copies. For anybody listening at home or in the room that doesn't have copies, there's copies available attached to the town administrator report. That'll also be accessible through the minutes as well. So the big, from 50,000 foot level, the lake access area that exists along Daniel Cater Road has existed in the town, doesn't have the authority to make it not exist as a lake access. And part of the problem with having something that exists but isn't formal is a lot of the concerns that the Lake Association Camp Fireside have brought up before about, unmetered access and erosion and other safety concerns. And the town, dating back, I can only really say confidently for the 5 years that I've been here, but the town has slowly been taking steps to do better, starting by installing the clean boat signs and trying to support the education campaign. The Conservation Commission hosted a Lake Association conference, and the road agent participated to help give tools to the lake associations on that education component. The state's position specific to invasive species is really the threefold approach of education, early detection, and rapid response. The state's position isn't that the only way to prevent invasive species is to not use the lakes. That's a big part of what it means to live in New Hampshire and having public bodies that are held in public trust, right? So the state does a good job in supporting municipalities for their own launch areas and for the launch areas that the state operates, like the one on Swains Lake. And so this design in taking the site from an area that's able to access the lake and formalizing it into an area that is able to access the lake in a safer or more environmentally friendly way, those were the design criteria that were set by the select board previously, and this is kind of the first iteration. So there's some conversation about the width of the ramp. And I suspect, and I don't know, but this is consistent with the comments, I suspect the 4 to 6 foot width is just simply to prevent somebody from backing a trailer down. The recommended width for a boat launch, a trailer boat launch, is 14 feet. You want to keep the car and the trailer on the surface ramp so they're not the environment on either side.
Jackknives or not.
Right, yeah. We've all seen the 10-point turns. So 12 feet was a little bit of a compromise from that, but it's a small ramp and it's not intended to launch the cigarette boats. The other big component, and this was important to the select board, is the docking facility. And you'll see that there's 2 options listed in the plans for the docking facility, one on the right, one on the left. And like I said, I'm not familiar with all the regulations in particular, but there are regulations about the distance of the dock from an abutting property. And so having the dock on the left side of the boat launch, which is option 2, would require agreement from Camp Fireside. So it's listed as kind of 2 options. I think the engineer is of the opinion having on the left would be better. It kind of follows the contour of the shoreline better. But that docking system has one of the assisted kayak launch stations. So you can bring your kayak down, put it on a stable platform, get in, and then roll into the water. And I think that will be a tremendous value add to the community. I was actually talking to the recreation director, and they have these stations, unmanned kayak rental stations, that you can get with the recreation department, either in person or online, get a code to essentially check out a kayak on site, has the life jacket, the paddle, everything you need in there. You check it out, you take it back, put it there. This might not be a good site for something like that, but imagine if, you could have kind of self-service, so as another service that we would offer to the community, obviously at a cost. So I'm on either page G1 or G2 right now. Another component of the project is the clearing. So anybody who's been down that section of Daniel Cater Road in the summer, and even the Lake Association has mentioned the blind curves along the road there. And the vegetation overgrowing the road is a big part of that. The road is a lot wider there than it feels in the growing months of the year. So clearing that vegetation would allow the shoulder widening and allow more opportunity for cars to get farther out of the traveled way. The position of the select board previously has been, with the support of the police chief and the fire chief, that with 2 access points on that road, reserving parking to essentially what would be the southbound lane has been acceptable, even if it blocks the southbound traffic and narrows that down to 1 lane. I think with the widening of the road, the expectation of the engineer is that in most cases, people would get far enough off the road that you could maintain 2 traveled ways of traffic on Daniel Cater Road with that widening. Sorry, go ahead,
just have
please.
a question. So essentially this vegetation that's grown into the road a bit is also a buffer that's preventing runoff into, so.
Yeah, and so I asked the engineer about that and the road agent. There was some discussion about whether to loam and seed that or to have like a riprap slope down from the road. There isn't a lot of room to work with, and so from the road agent's perspective, whether the vegetation should be cleared, whether the launch is built or not, simply because it is growing into the road and it makes that a blind curve and it's not tremendously safe. But I can certainly ask and follow up about how valuable the vegetative buffer is and what alternatives might exist.
Right, because we've had, not on this lake hopefully, but cyanobacteria blooms. And it was thought on NIPO that at least one factor among many was when gravel was put, that may have reached the cyanobacteria into the lake. So, and I see we would be putting down gravel here.
Yeah, it's a great point. And you remember from 2022, when the Lake Association put together a pretty comprehensive and generous letter of recommendations for addressing some of the concerns that they had identified. A lot of those had to do with road maintenance and areas of the road that were deteriorating. And some of the things that Mark's done, and Mark prepared a letter in response, updating the association and the select board and community about some of the things he's done. But offhand, some of the things I remember, we don't use salt on gravel roads. We haven't for 5 or 6 years. Another big one is the material he's using on gravel roads, so that we don't have to add or, more importantly, grade the gravel roads nearly as much. I was just talking to him today.
Rock.
Exactly. So I don't think that we're going to grade the gravel roads in Barrington maybe at all this year, which is unheard of. I mean, usually that's a multi times per year activity. And so some of the initiatives that he has implemented have really helped with those concerns.
So this walkway, could that be perhaps some of that?
I think that would be the expectation.
Okay.
Yep, I think that would be the expectation. One of the things that came up, and I'm working on this, I don't have good definitive information. When the surveyor was out there and working with the engineer trying to determine the project limits. So if you've been down Daniel Cater Road, the fence along Camp Fireside's property where the beach is, that fence essentially forms the property line from Camp Fireside's property and Daniel Cater Road. So the beach parking there is essentially all in the town's right of way. And I don't think that there's a formal agreement that exists right now, although we're working on it, for that cooperation between the town and Camp Fireside. I think everybody agrees that the most appropriate use of that area is parking for the beach. And I think if we had trailered boats along Daniel Cater Road, we wouldn't want trailered boats in that parking area. And so we're working to try to formalize an agreement there with the select board support as part of the process as well, if that makes sense to you all.
It is.
I talked about getting to the depth sooner and the design constraints being the depth of the water, in the draft of a boat. So at this, the last thing that I want to mention is scope. So The highway department will, the plan is for the highway department to perform some of this scope, which will actually count towards our 25% match requirement. So most of the clearing and road widening activities would be performed by the highway department. And we'll get a calculation of what we can count as match for that. But the hope is that that will count towards a lot of our match, and we may have less than $5,000 or $10,000 of exposure on the project, which would be
Excellent.
Are we still thinking this is a,
yeah. So the budget's 133,000. We have 100,000 from the state. Obviously, engineering and permitting will eat up some of that, and the bulk of the cost will certainly be with the ramp installation and the dock. We'll have the dock installed by the company that would be purchased from. So the only real timing constraint is getting the ramp part of the project out to bid and finalizing the permitting. We're not up against, our backs aren't up against the wall. And so, like Jim said, this is here for discussion to get feedback, not only from the board, but from the community. And it's incumbent on the select board, excuse me, to take that feedback and propose any recommended changes to the design before we finalize it.
Any further discussion from the board?
yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about the fact there are campers who walk on this road to get to the beach. So backing in and kids, whole big group of kids.
You, if the chair would like to allow you to speak, you just have to come up to the microphone because the recording can't hear you.
You want to come up?
Yeah, I lights on. So John Marco Salzano, Ayers Cove Drive. Been in town for just over 3 years. So I have been a member of the Lake Association for less than 6 months. I've been using the lake because I have access to it through my neighborhood since the day we moved in. I'm just trying to figure out why this is even happening. Matt and everybody's done a really good job of bringing me up to speed on the machinations of what's happening. But Joyce, you just brought up a point that I hadn't even thought of. I mean, the kids walk down Pond Hill to get to Daniel Cater and then walk down Daniel Cater. And that's during the week. So, and in the summer months, the camp is extremely busy. On weekends, the town folk that use the beach, that pay for the access to the beach, their kids are all over the place down there. The one thing I'm struggling with is I don't see where anybody can park a trailer on that road. I don't go on that side of the lake except on my paddleboard. I see it from the lake side. And I don't understand where people would park, even if there was 4 or 5 boats that just came in on a Saturday morning or Sunday, whenever they came in. There's no room over there. If you take the parking away from the camp, I think that would cause an issue for the people that are paying for the right to use the camp beach and park there. And that's crowded on Saturdays and Sundays during the summer, especially Saturdays, Sundays, Thursdays, Fridays. I'm on the lake, a couple times a week, as much as I can be. There's also wetlands across the street or a little bit up the street from where the launch is now, across from the beach entrance. So I don't understand where people are going to be bringing their boats in with the trailers and the possibility of the infestation of an invasive species of milfoil. I don't understand where they would be able to wash the boats anyway without having it go into the lake anyway. I'm sure the little body of water on the opposite side of the street during high rains or weather probably comes into the lake anyway. It's going to fall on both sides. I'm just not sure what the benefit here is of putting in something that you could put in a 22 or 23 or 24-foot boat on a trailer. Is there a size limitation on the size of the boats that can be on the lake? Horsepower limitation? So this is where I'm struggling with. The people that put their boats on the lake now, they have access privately. Wherever they put them in, they live on the lake. It's a boatable lake, but it doesn't make sense to me to invite the unnecessary issue that could come up with an accidental infestation of something like that when perfectly good resolution is to do the 4-footer with this the dock with the kayak launch. I spent a lot of time in Florida before I moved up here, and a lot of the lakes down there, and a lot of the public access rivers down there did the exact same thing with the kayak launch, and they were great. People loved it. You could walk up and down the ramp and get in and out of the lake easily, and then slide into the lake, and it was wonderful. But I just don't see the value add for the town to have a liability where a beautiful resource like Ayers it could be in jeopardy for no reason. It doesn't make any sense. But that's just my 2 cents, and I just hope you guys give it enough thought, because there's generations that have lived on the lake, people that use the lake regularly. So I don't know. I don't know if this is discussions. I wanted to comment. I've got up, Joyce, because your comment about the kids I hadn't thought of that. It's probably something to really consider. Anyway, I'm probably over 3
Thank you
minutes.
for your comment.
Thank you.
A couple things, if I may. The part of the, and sir, thank you for speaking, thank you for the comments. Part of the motivation for the conversation years ago is because people already park boats and trailers there. People already back trailer boats into the lake there, and it's much less safe in its current state than what's proposed. And so the idea that all of these are new problems or concerns, many of them are existing problems that are trying to be mitigated, and not everything. And there's a lot of design constraints on this site. There's a budget design constraint, and the site constraints add a lot of design constraints. You mentioned about the washing facility. I think from what the direction that I received, both from this select board and previous select boards, had a lot to do with the fact that it is a beautiful lake, and it shouldn't just be enjoyed by the people that live on the lake and are fortunate enough to have private access to launch boats on the lake. But a true community resource available for everybody, not just with their, kayaks and canoes, but with their small boats also. And those were the directives in pursuing improvements in general. Now, truth be told, if the state didn't offer a grant program offering $100,000 to make boat launch improvements, I don't think the select board would maybe ever be in a position to say that the best thing to do with taxpayers' $100,000 is to make these improvements to the boat launch. But fortunately, the select board were in a position where they wanted to make improvements to address the concerns, but didn't, have access to good funds to do it. And this grant program came about. And so that just some of the additional background and how we got to this point.
I was going to agree. Part of this is because concerned that people use that launch and can't be prevented from doing that, and that it's at least makes it a little safer, a little less invasive. Frankly, I don't know what a 4-foot ramp would do. I don't know what you do with a 4-foot ramp. Take your kayak and you put it in the water and you up to the launch and you can launch it. But right now, people still, there are larger boats. Frankly, can't get a very big boat on this lake anyway. It's draft prohibitive. The time you turn on the engine crank, it's time to shut it down. So I think that was, we have people pulling their vehicles in there, pulling their trailers in there now. At least with a concrete ramp, we have them less environmental impact on the lake.
I like it too, because it's not just for boats. People trailer kayaks as well, and then the heavier canoes. It's going to be wider, safer. You guys got any further discussion?
I'm very sympathetic with the residents, but I do feel like when this all started, that perhaps the message from some of the public was that anything would be better than nothing.
Yeah.
And so now we're faced with a different.
Chief Walker.
Yeah. If I might offer up, and I'll base it on what you see around Swains Lake and at the boat launch, the town had to put some signs up further up the road because on a good busy day in the summertime, there were boats and trailers all over the place. I think to a degree that if you look at that area, make your keep the designated area that's been already there for parking and strategically place no parking signs beyond this point in other areas, so that basically if there's room for 3 or 4 vehicles to park there, and them 3 or 4 spaces or 5 spaces, whatever it is, are being used, then they're not going, they'll have to do something different. They may be able to put their kayak in the water or whatever it is they're gonna put in the water, and then they're gonna have to go find someplace else to put their vehicle if there's no parking there. So I think because there's not a lot of room there, that no matter what you put in there, you're gonna limit the number of people that can use it at any particular time. And I'm not sure that maybe in the summertime or the busy time of the year that maybe the Board of Selectmen wouldn't consider that turning that road into one-way traffic to make sure that the people who live on that road and the people that are using the road, and more importantly, emergency vehicles, can get in and out of there during the busy times of the year. Again, I think with the limited amount of space you got there, strategically placing no parking signs is actually going to limit the people that can be using that at any moment.
Mr. Chair, as we were talking about design constraints, one of the big ones, and this was, one of the first, when I first started in Barrington, actually some of you will remember, one of the first things when I started in Barrington that summer, Ron St. Jean invited me to the Ayers Lake Association annual meeting. I didn't realize at the time that was really like a Trojan horse meeting, like come so we can talk to you about the boat launch and convince you that it's a terrible idea to have this there. But it was a great meeting and I met a lot of great people nonetheless. But the first thing that I learned that was really a hurdle to how to reconcile the concern for the safety of the lake and the safety of the site with the constraints that the select board and town are up against. It's the statute is RSA 271:20-A. And if this select board wanted to say, not even make a 4-foot or 6-foot boat launch, but say we want to shut down access, that's in direct violation of the statute, which says that no barriers or other impediments shall exist in the roads of ways leading to any of the public waters. And so that's, and you said, Ms. Cappiello, about how something is better than nothing. That was the, what the select board was faced with in trying to do something. A lot of that ties back to the fact that the town isn't legally able to shut down access at that site or install any barriers. And I haven't specifically gotten a legal opinion on, what if it was bollards that made a boat launch only 4 feet wide instead of 12 or whatever the width is now. And that, I think, I would anticipate that would qualify as barriers or impediments existing in the roads leading to public waters. And so I think it's difficult to restrict access in that way or restrict access at all, given those constraints, the constraints of state law. And so designing within, access has to be provided at that site, but it needs to be as safe as possible, is a challenge. It's been a challenge to grapple with. And like I said, without funds to do so, it's really difficult to do. Mark did a lot in the summer of 2022 with the resources he had, but you can only do so much when you don't have the ability to make a capital investment in.
So if it were 4 feet, do you think people would still try to back in there?
Yeah, and they'll get stuck. Or they'll go off the ramp on the side. Probably cause a delay.
Probably mess up the concrete.
Okay, Ron.
Hey, Ron St. Jean, Small Road. The reason we're concerned with trailers is trailers introduce as much milfoil as boats do, at least, because trailers have all kinds of hiding places under them. If they haven't been cleaned and somebody backs into that shallow area, that place is going to become a farm for invasives very quickly. The state only treats invasives at their expense once. After that, it's on the Lake Association or the residents to pay for remediation. That's a huge burden for a small group like us. We just don't have that kind of money or access to that kind of money. And then it becomes, either the town will subsidize that or you just let the property go to hell. What's going to happen? That's what we're concerned about. You talk about safety, we're talking about the safety of the lake. Having access with a lot of boats is going to be a problem. When we put in, or you put in, the select board put in the parking limitations for trailers, that really helped. That reduced boat traffic on the lake probably by at least 50% or more. Motorboat traffic is increased paddle boat kinds of traffic probably 3 or 4 times. We have parades of kayaks out there all the time. So people have access to the lake and they can use it and enjoy it without damaging it. Some of these boats that get put on there are wakeboard boats, and they, on a small lake like that, they do a tremendous amount of damage. Erosion of the shoreline, knocking docks off their piers, doing all kinds of stuff. That lake is too small for that kind of boat. And this kind of ramp is going to encourage people with those kinds of boats to come in. And that's what we're concerned about. Okay, we're happy to have people there enjoying the lake, enjoying the wildlife. That's a nesting ground for loons, eagles, ducks, geese, all kinds of stuff. And those things are going to be at risk with a lot more boat traffic. So hopefully, some way we can mitigate the risk of having a lot of boats, a lot of big boats in there. And if we could limit the size of the access, that has a little bit of impact anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Dana?
Yeah, I would just point out that people are still going to use that. They're using it now, pull their trailers in. Haven't so far this season, but they will. And that without reasonable ramp, they're just going to continue to move their trailers into this area. I don't think building the ramp will necessarily make this change this a great deal. The parking is the issue, and I think ways to solve that parking issue, as you point out, putting the no parking reduced, or the no trailer parking did reduce the traffic there, which is a good thing, but it's not completely shut it off. With no approved ramp, we're just putting people down through that gravel and it hasn't changed the protection against milfoil.
Mr. Chair, yeah, just for the record, the town didn't install the no trailer parking signs. And I think, and this is part of the conversation I think the town needs to have with Camp Fireside, with that parking area that's within the town's road right away. And I think, the recommendation that was made as part of this proposal is that area would stay as a beach parking area with, not for trailer boats. Obviously, you could put one car with a trailer in there, and then that would eliminate all that parking. Not only for the residents, but also for the camp, for the property owner there. And so, I think formalizing and finalizing an agreement between the town and Camp Fireside as the abutting property owner that establishes this is and not only establishes but makes it enforceable. The police department isn't in a position to enforce parking signs that a abutting property owner puts up, but parking signs that the select board put up, and like Chief Walker was saying, establishing parking limits and saying when that's it, and anybody who's outside of that area will be ticketed and or towed to help limit the impact to the direct area. So those parking signs are going to be or the trailer parking signs are going to be something we have to work out whether we do something here or not, I guess.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion?
Not tonight, but I want to come back and discuss.
All right.
Yeah, so do you want to put it on for continued discussion on the 29th? Obviously, I think it's important to have, or closer to a full board maybe, but give the other members an opportunity to
Yeah.
participate. I don't think we'll have everybody on the 29th. I think Dannon will be missing you.
I'm missing next time.
Maybe we can continue the 29th and give the other members an opportunity to opine.
Yeah.
I don't think, like I said, I don't think we want to wait too long, but we'll continue the conversation this time next week.
Sounds good.
Is there anything you'd like to see from me or the engineer different between now and then?
I think we're good.
I think it would be useful if I don't know if you can or who can address the no parking signs
Okay.
and see if we can kind of identify how that'll work.
Okay. Yep.
And access to the lake, in the RSA that you mentioned, that doesn't specify what type of boat, just public access.
Yeah, it says that you can't install barriers or impediments in the roads leading. It doesn't say you have to make improvements, but it says that you can't install barriers or impediments. Years ago, there were boulders dragged into the lake at that area. I don't think anybody knows by who, but and the town had to pull them out. The town pulled them out, and so those are the kind of barriers or impediments that state law says you can't do that. And again, that motivation from the state law is that the lake is held in public trust. The road is owned by the public, and so you can't. What they're saying is you can't take a road that's owned by the public, that gives access to a lake that's owned by the public, and cut off that access.
Right, but the access could, it doesn't have to be motorboats. It could be, you could put the kayak ramp in the middle of this.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I haven't gotten a legal opinion, but I wonder how you would do that, how you would limit that access without installing barriers or other impediments. You know? So maybe you could do it with signs, but then when nobody's looking, like Dannon was saying earlier, you're gonna, have somebody backing down there, just the same. So I don't know, but if you wanted me to look into that, I certainly could.
I would.
Yeah, and so, in that vision of yours, are there physical barriers to prevent something bigger?
Yeah, and I don't know from this if you move the kayak ramp really to the center of this, is there still enough access for someone to back a trailer up on either side of it?
Right.
Rather than in the middle?
Cool. We'll get that added.
Great.
All right. Okay, that's it for old business. On to new business. Ramsdale Lane Playground, Park, and Pavilion. So they have been working with the Durham Great Bay Rotary, and they have got a design for a pavilion that's 30 by 70. In addition to working with the Great Bay Durham Rotary, the Rotary actually works directly with A&B Barnes, which those are the same people that provided the cost for and setup for the pavilion. So just really looking at tonight, they don't need our permission necessarily to purchase the pavilion, but since the pavilion's going on town-owned property, we have to authorize where they would like the placement of it, as long as we agree with it. And then also looking to see if you guys would waive the purchasing policy for A&B Barnes.
My only question about this, I think it's a great idea. It'd be a useful thing, I think. I wonder if this is not the sort of thing that we're thinking of putting into the town-owned property, the town center. And would that be redundant, or does that kind of detract from what we were talking about as a vision for the town center? That's just my question.
I don't think so. I mean, there's so many kids
I think we
up
probably
there.
we'll probably end up having two. But I would think that would be definitely critical for, the activities that
Summer
go
camp.
on summer camp and have theater stuff there,
And
announcements.
just the amount of kids that use the playground, rainy days to have that.
Yeah,
Good point.
good shelter in place, so,
You
I'm
think
not.
we can hit the Rotary Club up for another one?
Oh, I see, I
My
see.
question.
That could be
Ah.
lovely.
And to that point, though, a lot of the funds that the Rotary access have to do with programming, and that's this site specific to the summer camp programming. If you've gone by there in the summer, you know all the tents, and the fire chief cringes every time because one windstorm, those are all blown over. It's really they're safe, but it is a safety hazard when you're mitigating risk. That is one of them, and so. Probably all of the undercover summer camp activities would be for this facility, and that's where the Rotary comes in big. They don't, the funds that they access don't have as much to do with physical things as it does in supporting programs for the community and the youth.
No, those are big programs. I'm questioning that.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that you were. I'm sorry.
I think it's a great idea. It looks like a good place to put it.
So it was only on topic for discussion tonight, but if we're feeling confident, we can go ahead and make a motion.
I'll make a motion to, what specifically do we need to do with the
Make a motion to authorize the placement
placement of it?
of the 30 by 70 pavilion, and then to make a motion to waive the purchasing policy to allow the town to work with A&B Barnes directly.
So moved.
Okay,
Or where's the?
All right,
Roll
you did
call.
that, I'll second it.
Oh, okay, well, I was gonna second your motion. That's
okay, roll call.
Aye.
Capella, aye.
Sakoshai. On to select board reports. Obviously, select board Heidekoff is not in. Select board member Mantrek.
Yeah, actually, Rick won't mind. I came late to the school board meeting because I was also at the library trustee meeting at the same time. He did that. We did, as far as school board is concerned, Ms. Capiello, Connor and I did attend the joint coordinating, whatever the name of that committee is. We did make one little modification to the charge that we put in. I think that you saw that somewhere written here.
Yeah, 5A little 2.
Right, somewhere in there. So that was about all we did. That it was a pretty good meeting. I think a good start. I think we have a good beginning of this thing, and we'll have set a further meeting date for that. Library trustees, we did discuss some of the building and some of the funding of that. That discussion went on at some length of how we're going to sort the funding out from the foundation, the Friends. Talk a little bit about that. Transfer committee will meet next Monday. I won't be able to make that meeting, but discussion there on recycling, I believe, will be.
All right, planning board. We formally adopted the 2024 subdivision regulations, planning board rules of procedure. You heard about the technical review group at our last meeting. And then we had previously approved this project. It's for 6 condos and 6 commercial spaces across from the cemetery at 9. And they came in for an amendment, just a conceptual discussion that they had it built into the hillside so that you entered the commercial from the Route 9 side and then you drove up back and entered from back. They would like to have all the parking down below, and they're going to add garage, enter through their garage to go up and then preserve the back space. All this.
Oh, cool.
So
Would that help with the lights into the neighbors?
Well, I asked about that, and they think probably.
Positive, unequivocal, maybe.
Yeah. There would still need to be the vegetation, as they had agreed to.
Excellent. Rec department, we just talked about the rec. They got a pavilion going up. Obviously getting rolling with summer camp activities, getting those solidified, getting ready to fire those up, and that's about all I have. Okay, with that being said, we're gonna open up our last public comment session of the evening. Is there anybody in studio or online? Okay, I don't see anybody online, so we're gonna go ahead and close public comment. And, could I get a motion to enter non-public?
Move into non-public session for personnel, RSA, whatever.
Second it.
Okay, roll call.
Aye.
Capello, aye.
Koshai.
Awesome.
I love what Rick's doing.